Hello. In this recording of our Justia webinar, Shackled to Our Screens, How Technology Has Imprisoned the Legal Profession, Laurie talks about how the dependence on screens may negatively impact lawyers' ability to uphold the model rules of professional conduct. She also shares well-being tips and strategies that can be implemented to healthily disconnect from our screens. Remember, if you'd like to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And I also appreciate the mindful comment about using the platform to network, but not increasing your screen time. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now to kick the program off. As was mentioned, my name is Laurie Besden. I am the Executive Director of Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers. I assure you that that little screen that showed my education and that wonderful, intro that was presented, as well as awards I have received, is certainly not the reason that I am employed by LCL. I have my own Carfax and journey. I almost died in an addiction that I swore I was immune from. And this organization saved my life literally 20 years ago. So part of this program, I am going to actually share my own personal story with all of you. I am not unique. I am so truly fortunate to be alive. And that is why I do the work that I do. I realize I've been on borrowed time for 20 years. Every person on this program, attorneys, non-attorneys, regardless of what state you're in, every one of us knows somebody that has struggled with substance use and or a mental health challenge. We know people in recovery. We know people that have died by suicide. We know people that are currently struggling. Every single one of us. Years ago when I started with LCL, and I would ask in a room of people, who knows somebody? And about 50% of the hands would go up. I don't even need to do that now. We all do. And the prevalence rates in the legal profession are astounding for substance use and mental health. At the end of the day, and I realize this is not all legal professionals on here today, but legal professionals solve problems for a living. What happens when the problem is ours? In my own story and in the fiber of my being, I truly believed there had to be a way for me to figure this out, go to a different county, go to a different state. Maybe I was doing something. I was definitely breaking the law, but perhaps if I did it low key somewhere else. And at the end of the day, the system and LCL are what saved my life, literally saved my life. And I'm going to share that story. Anytime in every state, every single state in the United States have a lawyers and judges assistance program. So if you happen to be in the legal profession and you're in Pennsylvania, we are your program. If you are in Arkansas, you have a fantastic program there. The bottom line is, because you are watching this program with Justia today, if you are watching it, whether you're a legal professional or not, if you need help and support, you can call Pennsylvania and we will assist you, and just let us know that you were on the program today. You do not need to give us information. And that I want to make sure everybody understands that there is a lifeline. While this title is catchy, while we all know we have problems being addicted and dependent on our devices, at the end of the day, anytime a lawyers and judges assistance program like Pennsylvania, like every state in the United States, does a presentation for CLE or otherwise, at the end of the day, we do it because we want to normalize the ask for help, because so many people need help and are afraid to ask for a variety of reasons. So I can talk about device dependence and it'll, be a big draw for a program. But at the end of the day, the message is we're all human. We're all walking each other home and normalizing the ask. So I'll give statistics. I'll share a lot of information. And I just, ask you to remember the importance of the program is really to remind you, if you are struggling or if you have struggled, you're actually within the majority. We in the legal profession tend to be type A. We solve problems. We can't ask for help. And I literally presented to a bar association in Pennsylvania yesterday, Lancaster Bar Association, They've had 2 suicides in their bar association in the last 3 months. And I'm going to keep sharing and talking about this because we want to normalize the ask. People are struggling, but it's even harder to pick up a phone and ask for help. So I will talk about how you as a colleague or a family member can actually help somebody that's struggling. As was mentioned, if you have questions, I may or may not get to them. More than likely, may not today. You have my email address there. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. I know I shouldn't say this on a program about device dependence, but as long as I'm awake, I do check my phone like most of you do. So, because I realize a lot of people, knowing my position, will send me an email requesting help instead of calling an emergency helpline. So I do check my email because I do get those requests. So if you send an email, as long as I'm awake, I will absolutely get it. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to take, I said about 20 or 25 minutes sharing my own story. I may or may not take that long. So, and again, I share this because if this can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. What I'm sharing is my own, and again, I'm not unique. There are millions of people in recovery, and there are also millions of people that did not make it. Meaning my story, I am not unique. I grew up, and this is factual, based on my own life experience. If you asked any of the people in that picture about their perception of my childhood, perhaps they would have a different story for you. So that's the family I grew up with, grandparents, sister, mom, and dad. I grew up in what I say is a 2-story house. 1 story on the inside, 1 story on the outside. On the inside, my parents were fighting. It was all about what everyone in the neighborhood thought of us, appearance, outcomes. Before my parents even had us, they knew we were going to be a lawyer and a doctor. Like it was already scripted for us. And they wanted kids so bad, and I say this because it is relevant later, they actually went through artificial insemination to have us. And so my sister there is 3.5 years older than me, and her life went according to plan. Exactly. She's a doctor in Philadelphia, delivers high-risk babies at Children's Hospital. Great life, went totally as intended. My life, not so much, which is why I work for LCL and I'm talking about the story. But my family, and I recently just even came to this revelation. I was in a car with somebody and they took a contact lens out, and I said, ugh, I don't like, the thought of like touching your eyeball. And he said, oh, have you never had contact lenses? And I said, you know what? I actually did have contact lenses when I was like 12. I had colored contact lenses, not to correct vision, but to correct my appearance. And I've never even shared this publicly, but I didn't even realize until something else was said. And I started to put this together about the appearance of having a perfect family. And then we wonder about the childhood trauma we go through. When I was 12 turning 13, my parents, my sister and I both had our noses corrected. There was not a deviated septum. It was just literally for aesthetic purposes. At that time, my bone wasn't even done growing. So now from the side of my face, I have a large bump in my nose that is permanently there and cannot be corrected. This is at age 12. I was basically told, how you look is not good enough. So we're going to correct your appearance, which honestly, there was really nothing wrong with it. It was better before. And here are some colored contacts. And so I was supposed to fit in a box that they wanted me to fit in. And so I don't know what role that trauma played on me in my life, but obviously it impacted me somehow because my Carfax is pretty crazy. So that's the family I grew up in. And on the outside, though, people thought we were the greatest family. My mom made pancakes for 20 of my friends every Sunday. We grew up with a beach house in New Jersey. We still have that house. Our family was so into education. They knew what we were going to do. And my grandparents were extremely generous. They paid for all of our school, undergrad, graduate, medical school, law school. And we were literally just handed a life and asked to just walk the journey. Didn't work out that well for me. So my sister, as I said, 3.5 years older, I basically stole her childhood. The first recollection I can have of anything, and I know it's hard to remember that I could remember when I was 8 years old, but this experience was so euphoric. My mom took me to the dentist to get a routine dental cleaning. I was 8. I did not even have cavities yet. and they offered me nitrous because my mom, and still to this day, she gets nitrous for dental cleanings. They gave me nitrous, and I sat in that chair, felt like I was flying, did everything I could to move my foot so the dentist would say, "Oh, do you need more? You're not relaxed." Gave me more, and I did everything I could to stay awake. From that point on, I was like, how do I get that feeling again? That was amazing. For once, I felt like comfortable in my own skin. I felt like enough. I felt completely at peace. And what I didn't realize is how much turmoil I was actually in when I was in my own skin and not under the influence of anything. So that was age 8. By age 12, my best friend and I, and her name is Shelby. I may or may not talk about that later. We had a friend drop off 2 6-packs of beer. We got completely drunk. We were 12 years old, drunk. One of us didn't even have pants on. We were walking around my neighborhood in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, in Plymouth meeting, holding whatever unopened beers. 2:00 in the morning, Mother's Day. Police pull up as we're roaming the neighborhood half naked and said, "Where are you girls going?" They take us to the police station. They call my parents because it was my neighborhood. And my mom said, "Not Laurie. She's in bed sleeping." Well, that was like the first of several calls like that. And so ultimately, all parents come to the police station, and I tried to pin it on her. I said, "Oh, Shelby is such a bad influence. This was her idea." And Shelby is now a pharmacist. So clearly this was not Shelby. It was at my house. I orchestrated the whole thing, and our parents separated us. So carry on through, high school. I did what my friends did. I had a group of 10 very close girlfriends. We drank, we smoked pot, we did, I wasn't yet using drugs or anything on my own. And so, it came time, my sister went to Penn State, and my family said, "Where do you want to go to college?" That was about the only choice I had in my education. And I don't mean to sound grateful. I'm extremely grateful. It's just my journey in life went a different way. So I decided when it was time to go to college, I would go to University of Maryland, College Park. I always wanted to obviously go to college, not obviously, but on that poster board as a kid, what do you want to do when you're older? From the door, kindergarten, I said, I want to be a cosmetologist. Now, of course, don't judge me based on how my hair looks today, but I've always wanted to do that. I've cut hair for everybody my entire life. Everyone I know, roommates, whoever. So I always thought I'll go to college and then I'll go to cosmetology school. So I go to college, criminology, criminal justice major. And, I was living in a suite with 6 girls. My best friend then is still my best friend now, Kathleen. And we would literally get a case of beer on Thursday night, start drinking, and we would drink when we were in the shower. I honestly was like, this is time management. Who doesn't drink beer in the shower? Then by the time you go out, you're drunk. And because I wasn't the only person doing it, I didn't realize how I believe it now looking back, outrageous behavior, but some people do that. So, but again, and I would be so drunk on those Thursday nights. I had an internship with parole and probation on Friday morning in Silver Spring in Maryland. And I would still be drunk and try to nap off a hangover in a bathroom stall by lighting like paper towels in the corner stall while people were giving urine tests. However, I graduated in 3.5 years with a 3.97. So keep in mind that 2-story house. All that matters were my grades. I always thought an alcoholic is somebody who's under a bridge, drinking, shaking, drinking every day. No, it's not. I never drank from not shaking. The barometer for me was when I first took a drink, I couldn't predict who I would end up next to, where I would end up, what toilet bowl I would be throwing up in. It was never a drink with dinner. It was when I drank one, all bets were off. And I thought that was normal. I'm like, it's college. Everybody's doing this. Well, for some people that is normal, but I never matured out of that party. And so it was then I graduated from college. I graduated early and I volunteered for a nonprofit in North Philadelphia. My sister's now in medical school as planned. And we had a family meeting, basically all the people except for my sister that you see in this picture. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? This is a setup question. Like I had no latitude. And I said, I would like to go to cosmetology school. And they said, that's great. How about after law school? And so I was always interested in the law. Little did I know I would be interested to end up educating myself because I'd be a defendant multiple times. That was not the interest that I thought I had. And so I ended up going to Dickinson Law School in Cumberland County, central Pennsylvania. And I remember the presentation at orientation, and it was a gentleman who gave this story and basically gave a prevalence rate and said, well, X number of you will, struggle with substance use, mental health. And I was irritated that we had to listen to this. I couldn't believe, A, there was an attorney that was on LSD that ruined his life and was now working for this nonprofit telling us that people in that very room at orientation were going to be struggling. I was like, we're in law school to represent those people. What is this guy talking about? I actually wrote down to the person, the stranger sitting next to me, waste of time, and underlined it in that presentation. I now have his job. So I often say when I speak at law schools, don't laugh for this presentation. One of you in the future may have this job. Don't laugh because I did not see it coming. And so throughout law school, my family, all they wanted to know, how are your grades? How are you doing? Grades. And so I studied as hard as I could. I was in as many study groups, outlines, rewrite my outlines, listen to classes on tape, and then retype them. I did as much as I could because I was deathly afraid of failing. And we all have that little thing in us that's like perfectionism. And I was deathly afraid of failing my family and what they wanted because I was literally walking their path. So I was maintained top 15% of my law school class. And people are like, I want to be a trial attorney. And I'm like, does anybody need a haircut? I mean, literally, that's how uncomfortable I've been in my skin my whole life until like the final chapter. And so I ended up going through law school, top 15% of my class, lost, no idea what I was going to do after. Everybody's like, got these internships. I had no idea. So it came, third year of law school, I'm involved in a car accident. I was the passenger, but we were both drunk. We went to see Pearl Jam in Philadelphia. Driving back, we hit the guardrail, end up at the emergency room, 20 to 30 Vicodin. This is the story. So we all know somebody who has this story. That literally lit a match that caused a forest fire that nearly killed me, but settled for my freedom. I did not see that coming. Although I loved the way I felt under the influence of any substance, alcohol, drugs, whatever it was, I in a million years never thought that I could be that person. And so I missed that memo that you will need these pills like oxygen. And that is exactly what happened to me. I realized those pills gave me the ability to study and focus. I was treating an untreated ADHD that in 2020, I was finally actually diagnosed by a doctor, a psychiatrist, and a psychologist after taking the appropriate testing. So I was treating an untreated ADHD and literally lit off an addiction and I could not stop. But I was the last one to see it. 5 years that went on. So initially, I found a doctor, this was like years, obviously 25 years ago, that would prescribe these pills through a pharmacy in Texas. So initially, I did the emergency room runs. Then I found a doctor that would send 100 of these pills to your house, multiple refills, you pay a consult fee. So I went from spending all that time in the ER to bang, these pills are just in my house. I was living with someone, they had no idea. Often we find out somebody was struggling. We're like, how did we not know? Because certain drugs make people almost appear normal. So I took the Pennsylvania and New Jersey bar exams. Under the influence. I'm not proud to say that. At that point, I really needed those drugs to literally get out of bed. Passed both of them because, again, I had no choice but to take them if I was getting out of bed and doing anything. Went on a trip with the guy I was seeing in Spain and Africa. Came back solo. I had actually brought the drugs I had with me. I thought, I'll stop after the bar exam. But why would I throw drugs away? I took them with me to Spain and Africa, called in a refill from a payphone in Spain, still thinking this is recreational and I'm brilliant, and ended up flying back solo, ran out of drugs, completely withdrawing. And I actually had no idea. I thought I caught something overseas. And my parents picked me up and I was sick and literally like flu-like symptoms. And my mom said, this package came for you. And she handed me the package. It was the pills. They were not marked. I went upstairs. I took 3. Totally fine. Totally fine. And so I thought, well, I'm home. Fine. Anyway, I had a clerkship lined up on the on the Pennsylvania Superior Court for a former Supreme Court justice in Pennsylvania. And my story, as not proud as I am of this part, has been shared and in print and verified and whatnot. So I'm not saying this like I'm proud that this happened in the Superior Court. I'm not, but it is part of the story. And so into chambers in Philadelphia walked me and my addiction. When I started in August, I had several doctors that were calling in for several of these identities I was using with this doctor. By the time that December came around, I had 9 identities with this doctor in Texas that I was using. DHL overnight delivery, signature required, coming to chambers. I would literally chase the DHL guy up and down the elevator because it was the Airmark building, large building. And I would call this doctor, I would impersonate a male. I had these drugs coming in dog's name, fictitious names, my name, boyfriend's name. And people say, like, how did nobody realize something was going on? And I said, because I showed up and I did my job. People trust us. That's how these things go under the radar. And it wasn't their responsibility to figure this out either. And so I finished that clerkship. In the middle of that clerkship, I called the pharmacy under whatever identity, and they said, oh, your doctor, he's been suspended. Finally, my doctor treating 9 identities from Texas. So at that point, I became the doctor. I started calling in my own prescriptions from Montgomery County, Pennsylvania to Atlantic City, New Jersey. If I knew your name and your birthday, I used your insurance. I don't know that I missed many pharmacies in a 130-mile radius. Added Ambien and Xanax to the mix because I could. After that clerkship ended, it was 1 year. I had another clerkship on the municipal court in Philadelphia for 3 judges, very low accountability. At that point, I got together with a friend from college. She pulled out cocaine. I remember thinking, that's a serious drug, as if impersonating a doctor across state lines on the phone is not a problem. Tried the cocaine. I did not put that drug down until my freedom was taken from me. Like, literally did not put that down until my freedom was gone. And so I barely remember that rest of that second clerkship. I went from normal appearance, and once the cocaine hit, within 3 days, I was going into the criminal justice center with cocaine in a straw in my stocking. And within a couple weeks, I went from, and literally was a couple weeks, from 150 pounds to very noticeable weight loss, probably close to 130. And at that point, my mom knew there was something wrong with me. My parents were happily divorcing. And she contacted the one judge and said she's going to need to go to get help. So it was before Google, it was before all of that. My mom said, here's the address. I did MapQuest. I met her. I assumed I was going to rehab. I mean, my nose was bleeding. I hadn't showered. It had been like days. And I met her there, and I was on a 3-day cocaine bender or a 4-day cocaine bender. I picked up Dunkin' Donuts on the way because I hadn't eaten. And when they went to do the intake, they're doing the intake, I'm eating. And then I realized when they went to take my weight, they said, turn around, face the other way. I said, why am I facing the other way? Because you're at an eating disorder facility. And I was like, I don't have an eating disorder. They actually watched me eat a dozen donuts, 45 munchkins, and not asked to get up, observed me for 3 additional hours, and then refused to admit me. And I share that only because my mom did her best, absolute best, never diagnosed somebody. She was so close to getting it right. She went left. I went right. I didn't speak to her for 2.5 years. In those 2.5 years, I was arrested 5 times for felony prescription fraud, 2 states, 29 car accidents, 3 incarcerations, 3 rehabilitations centers, and January 29, 2004 is my sobriety date. Obviously, I'm condensing this so I don't take anything more than about a few more minutes to share this. And on that day in 2004, a volunteer from LCL called my house as I was getting arrested, my dad's house, called the police station as I was typing my own statement, and then came to the prison to talk to me and meet me. On that day, I was taking 55 Vicodin, Lortab, Ambien, Xanax, and $2,000 of cocaine a week. I walked in there and asked for the detox unit, and they were like, it's a jail, we're all rehab. And I'm grateful for that experience. This volunteer, Dave, who you'll see in the PowerPoint, came to visit me. And I'm like, who are you? Am I going to have to work for you? And he's like, I'm 31 years clean and sober. I'm just trying to help, pay it forward. And I'm like, what? I didn't know there were other people that have like been to hell like myself. And he thought he was just answering a call to reach out to an attorney. It has been 20 years, multiple hearings, and Dave is still such a huge part of my life, and I would not be where I am today without him. Needless to say, he stuck with me the whole prison journey. I was there for 11 and a half months. I went in, drug weight 110, left 253 pounds. Food became my next drug. When I got out of prison, I was on intensive parole. He had me report everything to the disciplinary board. And I said, sorry, missed the 30-day reporting requirement by 4 years. I was arrested a million times. Entered a 3-year suspension joint petition in Pennsylvania, and New Jersey followed suit. I got involved with AA, NA, International Lawyers of AA, started going to recovery meetings in the legal profession, AA in general. And then in 2008, Dave said, I think that we should file for reinstatement. And I'm like, I can't even go to cosmetology school. I'm a convicted felon. And he said, let's try to get your license back. I'd worked at a law firm the entire time when I got out of prison until we filed. And we did. And unanimously, I was recommended, by a power much greater than myself, to be reinstated to the practice of law in Pennsylvania in 2009. New Jersey followed suit in 2010, which is a miracle that I wasn't disbarred. And then in 2011, I came on board with LCL. I'm the product we sell. Look at my great family, very privileged, blah, blah, blah. I almost died on drugs. And they tried to buy me out of prison. And had the judge given us what they were asking for, I definitely would be dead and not here today. So that judge, who is now one of my closest friends, sentenced me to the option of a new life and literally gave me the one gift that money couldn't buy, and that was time. I come on board with LCL 2011 as deputy director, 2015 executive director, and then 2017 I filed for a governor's pardon, thinking on the merits, I may get this. And so I file it, and lo and behold, there are canons, which are judicial rules of conduct in every state. I can at least speak for Pennsylvania, but I believe the ABA has model rules in every state. And judges, at least in Pennsylvania, are not permitted to write character letters. Not only did the judge that sent me to prison all of those times, Judge Carpenter in Montgomery County, write a letter of support, so did the president judge, Judge Tom Del Ricci at the time, in the same court, Montgomery County, as well as Risa Furman. And these judges not only wrote letters of support, but they actually came to my pardon hearing 2 hours each way, stood at the podium with me in front of the pardon board, saying that I've been redeemed, and they stood there and supported me. And to even top that off, at the time, the Chief Justice at the time in Pennsylvania was Chief Justice Tom Salem. He had been on the Supreme Court at that point 24 years. So the entire time I was in law school, all of this went on up through that point. He had been on the Supreme Court and served as chief for several years. He wrote his first and only letter in support of any pardon applicant in his entire career on my behalf. And in that letter, which you'll see, it says, I can't imagine a more deserving applicant. And you just heard this story. And I share this because how does our profession view redemption and recovery? That's how. I didn't know these people before. All the people that were involved in the system that was involved in my takedown then stood by my side, the district attorneys, the detectives, and all wrote letters in support, probation officers, and have presented so many times with me to share the story that sometimes time out is actually what's necessary. And so ultimately that pardon was granted in 2020. And part of the reason when they asked me, when I went through the interview for that, and they said, the parole auditor, I think if you only have one conviction you're trying to be pardoned on, I think they just call you. No, I had 5. And so they came to my house. And the gentleman opened his book, and one of his questions, he said, if you could do anything different, what would you do? And I looked at him and I said, I had the same question at my reinstatement hearing. And I said, you know what? I wouldn't change anything. I'm deeply remorseful that I committed crimes and called in impersonating doctors and did this to pharmacies and the medical profession. But this journey has given me the gift of being the best version of myself and being of service to other people. If I had to erase everything just to erase being a convicted felon, I wouldn't take that deal. And he literally looked at me, closed his book, and said, "Thank you. I have nothing else to ask you." And I thought, well, that probably didn't go well. But at the end of the day, that's the truth. And I said the same thing in my reinstatement here. And so the pardon was granted. And one of the reasons I said I wanted the part, or I was requesting or asking for consideration, was because my only regret in life, which is hard to believe considering you just heard the story, is not only not serving the country, but never considering it. I have such a profound respect for military and service folks. And I just deeply regret as an adult, once I got my life back together, I looked back and thought, I wish that I had done something like that. So at age 49, I went to my fire company because that was the only way for me to right this regret. And I walked in there thinking, I'll do data entry. It's a volunteer fire company in Hampton Township, Pennsylvania. And I said, they said, well, what are you looking to do? And I said, what do you need? And the 24-year-old lieutenant looked at me and said, we need firefighters. And I was like, oh, yeah. He said, you can do it if you think you can do it. I finished the fire academy at the end of April 2024. And I have been with the Hampton Township Volunteer Fire Company as a firefighter for 14 months. And to go from being a felon to a first responder is only a gift of the magnitude of what recovery and asking for help can do. I did not ask for help, but people brought me help because I was caught in the system. So let me quickly get through these pictures to show you this story in pictures because it's crazy. And then we're going to move on to Shackled, and I'll keep an eye on the time. These were pictures that were taken in my addiction. The picture with the red glasses was used on an Oprah segment in 2007 on addiction. You could see how thin I was. The wedding dress, that's a whole other story. I somehow amassed 4 of them without being married or engaged. And I won't even get into the story. I can't even explain it. Just really outrageous behavior. More addiction. When I would call the pharmacies to impersonate a doctor, I would be so strung out for being awake that I would actually write out these scripts and call the doctor hotlines and leave these on there saying the doctor's DEA number is this, it's for patient this. When I got out of prison, I found all of these under a drawer, including these labels with fictitious names, none of them were in my name, of scripts that I had filled over time, just the ones that didn't make the trash can. And it was really quite an operation I had going. This was the bottom left was the pharmacist at Target that last had to identify me. There I was the day I got out of prison at 253 pounds. There are my dogs. Unfortunately, the dog in the red, Grace, has since passed on, but that's amazing. And Grace, I keep a Christmas tree up all year long because as a child, I did not celebrate Christmas. So as an adult, I certainly do. And Maisie goes along with me to a lot of the law schools here. There you can see she volunteers with dementia residents. She's been to the state capitol. She's been to the judicial center. And she literally is a rescue. And I have volunteered with animal advocacy as a dog walker at 2 local rescues the last 15 years. When 2012, I met this woman. We spoke on a panel at Penn State State College for orientation at the law school. I saw this post that she needed a kidney. All I will say in the interest of really keeping this short is that I ended up quietly testing. I was a match. We went as far as pre-admission testing for June 3rd, 2013 surgery date, when she found out somebody was on life support and had just passed away in Pittsburgh, and that's where she got the kidney from. The reason I share this is because I went from literally snorting cocaine off the rug in Chambers, if I even was snorting cocaine, I don't even know what was on the rug, to being deemed healthy enough to give life to somebody else. That's not me. That's recovery, and that's what's possible. This is the day of my pardon hearing. That is the Chief Justice with the white hair holding the dog. Myself, Risa Furman, prior court administrator Jeff Molden, Judge Tom Del Ricci, and there's my sentencing judge on the end, Judge William Carpenter, who I can assure you was not that happy any of the times that I was in front of him as a defendant. He has become such a close friend, and we share and celebrate our sobriety anniversary every year. It's not his, but it's the one he made possible. There's the letter the Chief Justice wrote on my behalf. That was me once I got the pardon. So I mentioned artificial insemination. So in 2017, a big year for me, I filed for a pardon, and I also sent my 23andMe DNA away. And as a felon, it's surprising I would even send my DNA anywhere, but I did. And lo and behold, I have located my biological father, who is in that picture with my biological mother. And to date, we have now located 13 siblings. And had I died, I would never have been alive for this miracle. Going back to, I told you my best friend, Shelby, we were arrested when we were 12. I found out 3 months ago that Shelby just found out that her dad is not her biological father. You guessed it, just found out that we're sisters. And to find out one of your best friends from childhood who did not grow up in the house with is one of your best friends. In fact, somebody you got in a lot of trouble with is really mind-blowing. There are just some places. There's Dave, the volunteer. There's Stephanie Sharp, the district attorney that prosecuted my last case, who now works for the FBI. We've presented all over the place. These are just some activities. I'm a Peloton enthusiast. I officiate weddings. I must have some theme about weddings, skydiving, and dates at the Judicial Center with the Chief Justice's dog, and just being silly and connecting with staff. This was one of our Zoom pictures a couple of years ago for a holiday card. So that is my story. That is why I am with LCL. That is why I do the work that I do. And that's why when I say, if you are struggling, send me an email. I don't care who you are. If you're on this program, you are absolutely entitled to help. I shouldn't be here. I literally, between firefighting, AA, that I'm still very involved in, ILAA, I took a meeting to the prison last night. I can't give enough back to pay back the gift of life that I was given. So I will do anything I can to help somebody. So I want to just quickly, very briefly talk about the services LCL offers, as well as the services that every lawyers and judges assistance program offers. In Pennsylvania, we assist anybody in your office. Does not have to be a legal professional. We are 24/7. We do not report anywhere. Your call is 1,000,000% confidential. You don't have to give a name. Our services, absolutely free and confidential. So it is really hard to get in to see a therapist. We have a network, 152 therapists in Pennsylvania. If you're calling from Pennsylvania, we pay for the initial assessment with the therapist. We will get you in to see somebody in less than a week. We have that deal. We have fast tracking, and these are highly recommended therapists. And we often say, like, we're all in the legal profession, we advocate for missions and passions. You're the most important passion and mission to advocate for. So it's very important, if you're struggling, get to a therapist, get properly diagnosed, and get a proper treatment plan. On our website, which is right there, tons of information and literature. Call us. We'll send you books from Amazon free on substance use, mental health. Free assistance with interventions. So this is interesting. About a third of our call volume will come in as interventions. Third parties concerned about somebody else. Sometimes people call and say, I'm a judge and as an attorney, something is off. Can you reach out to them? We reach out to them. We leave the person that called us completely out of the mix. We also do not share any information that was given to us. Like, my mom misdiagnosed me. Often people will call and say, somebody's an alcoholic, or we've later found out that they were just self-treating for major depression. We never share any details of what is said to us. We literally call people and offer a warm lifeline. That's all we do. Peer volunteer. And I will say in the intervention component, we will also help guide folks who are concerned about somebody. When we reach out, we LCL staff reach out, 70 to 80% of the people, that I will use the term loosely, lightly, that we are randomly calling, 70 to 80% of them will accept one of our services. What does that tell you? The power of your voice is huge. You can make a difference. Often people say, what if I'm wrong? I don't want to be wrong. What if I upset them? What if you save a life? What if 70 to 80% is a good enough number that you actually might be right? And worst case scenario, you're not involved anyway for reaching out to somebody. I've also reached out to people out of state. So this does not just apply to Pennsylvania. Peer support, Dave. We have 352 Daves, judges, lawyers, family members, law students that have walked through any type of stressful situation I want to literally turn around and pay it forward to the next person. I guarantee you any issue that anybody could go through, one of our volunteers has gone through. We have folks that have walked through cancer treatment. We have folks that have lost children. We have folks, you name it. We have volunteers that are literally willing and able and ready to help the next person walking through a situation. We also have 13 lawyers, judge, recovery meetings in Pennsylvania. 11 are on Zoom. Most of them are open to substance use and mental health. So you can be out of state and you can still Zoom into our meetings if that's something you'd like to do. Our staff, like every staff on a lawyers and judges assistance program, we are connected not only with therapists, we have relationships with treatment centers nationally. So if you call us and you're in Atlanta and you have this type of insurance and you're looking to go inpatient, we can help you. We can help you. This is what we do. When it's a crisis in your house, it is hard to look at the back of the insurance card. Oh, they're only open at this hour. Oh, well, they could take this. What is the code? That is a lot to do when the emergency is in your hands. Please lean on the lawyers assistance programs and let us help. So we, Pennsylvania, not every lawyers and judges assistance program, we are 24/7. What does that mean? That means the majority of these issues do not happen 9 to 5. I am not just sober until 5 o'clock and then I just do whatever. And then I would never come back at 9 a.m. the next day. So we are 24/7. We get a large number of after hours calls. Our own staff of 7 rotate on call. So we understand there's a need. And it's important that people realize, don't wait. That's like saying, oh, I'm just going to see how things turn out. Really? If you have cancer, do you say like, hey, I'm going to try to think my way out of this? No, you go to an oncologist, you get a treatment plan. People rally around you in support of you and cheer you on. But when it's substance use and mental health, we're like, shh, don't tell anybody. People are dying. We can't afford that. So those are our services. And again, you can always reach out to me directly. I'm going to skip some of these slides because I want to get to the bulk of it. What's really important on this slide, the trend, at 2024, 75% of all of our call volume, lawyers, judges, law students, family members, are presenting with mental health challenges. I am saying that to normalize the ask. I lost a dog like 16 months ago, very unexpectedly. I couldn't even at 19 years sober in this job, I couldn't even pick up the phone to ask for help. I emailed the provider for grief relief asking if they could see me. So I'm trying to normalize the ask. Majority of our calls are mental health. All of you walk through a pandemic. Was there one person that didn't deal with stress and anxiety? Not one. Here are some of our top presenting issues that we've seen just to, again, normalize the ask. The order now is anxiety, stress, depression, and alcohol is 4th, but either way, top 4 are still top 4. So I want to talk briefly, because this does have to do with devices, multitasking. Many of us, maybe even on this program, maybe you're on your phone and you're just kind of listening to me in the background. This should have been the first slide probably. Think that we can multitask and use the executive function of our brain in 2 separate places at the same time. The answer is only 2.5 of us can do that. I am not in that 2.5%. I work from a tread desk when I'm not presenting, but that does not require executive function. That's to help treat ADHD. What we don't realize when we think we're multitasking, when you switch gears, there is a switch cost that actually decreases your productivity up to 60% for that multi-second that you switch your focus from one task to another to get yourself readjusted. I only share that because often it makes much more sense to X out of your email. If you're working on a brief, close everything out. Give yourself whatever amount of time and focus. It's amazing when we see numbers like this and we think it's amazing that we can't get things done. ADHD runs rampant in the legal profession. General population, our numbers are much higher than that, as you can see there, and these materials will be available for you. So studies have been done. I'm going to coast through all of this. Studies have been done in the legal profession. The bottom line, and I still use a 2016 survey because this was the baseline before the pandemic hit. And this was the largest study up to that point that was done. So the data is accurate. 1 in 3 active practicing attorneys or sitting judges will struggle with a substance use or a mental health challenge at some point in their legal careers. Think about that number, 33%. If I told you you had a 33% chance of winning the lottery, I would assume that every person on this program would then hop off and go buy lottery tickets. Think about it in the opposite. That's a high prevalence rate. We know this is this is even before, this came out before the pandemic. Many of us, we send an email out to our team or whatever, to our office. I'm leaving, have a great weekend. You shut your computer down, close your laptop, then you get in the car, and then you're checking right in the car. Hey, I was gone for 8 seconds, just checking my email again. Almost all of us do that, and exactly like this says, I'm leaving work to go home and check work email. We never get a break from our devices, and it's actually causing ADHD. It's causing loss of connection. I am not saying devices do not serve a purpose. My God, they do. I'm sitting in front of a screen. I've got a cell phone over there for time. They do serve a purpose. Thank God for virtual programs. We're able to do programs like this. But I'm talking the excessive scrolling, the excessive watching things that are not good for us, engaging with people that are not good, comparing yourself to an athlete that's running marathons in the Olympics and saying you're not doing enough. All of these negative, assignments are what I'm talking about. Here are just some random numbers. Television, and that television is definitely archaic. I don't even know where I got that image from. But how many hours of TV are we watching? On average, 7 hours, 15 minutes per day of television per household. This is probably my favorite slide in any of my PowerPoints I've ever presented in the last 13 years. So many people on here have an iPad. You may even be watching this program through an iPad. 2010, look exactly what was said. Steve Jobs, what this device does is extraordinary. It's the best browsing experience you've ever had, way better than a laptop, way better than a smartphone. It's an incredible experience. Now, while Steve Jobs passed away before 2014, there was an interview that was published in the New York Times where Nick Bilden interviewed him and said, your kids must love the iPad. And Steve Jobs replied, oh, they haven't used it. We limit how much technology our kids get and use at home. Wait, what? You said this is the best and most incredible experience, extraordinary? Those were his words. Perhaps we should take a page out of Steve Jobs' book, maybe not totally out of his book, but on this particular point, and limit the screen time. He knew this device was not good to have inside his own house and have his kids on. But yet it was fine to release it to the world where now all of our kids are sitting with devices right up in their faces. Internet use, we all know. I mean, you're driving, you're Googling things, you're asking, whether it's Siri or Alexa or anything, just asking for searches nonstop. These are some statistics. And again, I share this information just so you have the information and knowledge. I'm certainly not insinuating anybody has a problem. Think about these numbers. These are 2021, 2022, or actually even worse. Average person unlocks their phone 150 times a day. Average. Okay? We wonder why it takes us so long to get things done. Why are we distracted? Because you unlock your phone to text your mom to wish her a happy birthday, and then you realize, oh my God, I got a text I forgot to respond to. It's so-and-so's birthday. I need to order something from Amazon. And we wonder why our attention is all over the place. Average smartphone literally impacts our brain chemistry, our use. 66% of the world population shows signs of nomophobia. Have you even ever heard of that word before? Fear of not having our phones, because we literally see our phone as an extension of ourselves. I will say I had an experience where I went into a bank for a deposit for LCL, only 4 blocks away, was of course on my phone, not just checking or doing whatever. Left the phone in the bank, left the bank by without the phone. I was down like 2 blocks away when I realized all of a sudden, heart palpitations, I left my phone. I felt like I was driving naked. I literally did a U-turn in the middle of a 4-lane highway to rush back to the bank. Listen, if you're going to leave your phone anywhere, the bank's definitely the best and most secure place to do that. I ran in with gusto and said, is my phone here? And they're like, you've only been gone like 45 seconds. It's exactly where you lost it. I mean, Nomophobia. It is actually the number one phobia in at least 9 states. That was just in a recent article. I'm not going to ask because I obviously can't see all the people on here. How many of us sleep with our phone next to our bed? Oh my God, so many. Why? Because we need to know what time it is. I presented, and I'm sure I probably won't get to the slide, but it is in the slide deck. I presented at Harvard in 2019, and I picked up their newsletter or their Harvard Law Record just to see, like, I did not obviously go to Harvard. So I just wanted to see, like, what do they write about in their, publications. Number one article, which is copy of that is in this PowerPoint, on well-being and how we all just need a hard reset. One of the bullet points of the top article in paper was get an alarm clock. And I'm like, I need Harvard to tell me to buy an alarm clock. Well, apparently I did, because I was sleeping with my phone right next to my head. I would wake up to see, I'd look at what time it is, and then I would realize that I missed all of these amazing updates, and there went my sleep. So for the period of time between reading that article, then I started sleeping with my phone in a different room. And then as a first responder, obviously my phone needs to be in my room, but I keep it on the other side, and I only allow the fire company alerts to come through. So many people would rather go without shoes or sex instead of go without their smartphones. Average person touches their phone. Average, this is average. I'm not average, I'm on the higher end. 2,600 times a day. Upper users like myself, 5,400 times a day to swipe, tap, type, this, that. That is an incredible amount of time that we can never, ever get back. Many of us check our phone immediately upon waking up. I'm guilty of that. Many of us try to limit our time now on our phones. Let me throw this out because, again, this isn't a PowerPoint. I don't know that I'll get to it. Many of us, or some of you may have just wanted an ethics credit. Maybe that's why you're on here. Some of you may have really tried to limit your time on your phone, turn it over, or turn it, your do not disturb on, leave the phone inside when you walk your dog. We have tried ways to control and limit our phone use. What I can ask you is, have you ever tried to limit the number of apples you've eaten? No. Have you ever taken a half of a Tylenol? No. Sounds silly, doesn't it? Even as an addict, I have not done that. We never try to control or limit things unless we have a problem with it. So I'm going to just leave that food for thought right there. This is another great statistic. 75% of us use our phone while on the toilet. Guilty as charged. 19% of us have dropped our phone in the toilet. Not guilty. Not guilty of that. 12% of us use our phones while we're in the shower. I mean, just think about it. Back in the day, in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, we would be on the phone, on the wall. We would hang the phone up on the wall. We would then leave the house with no phone. And you have to wonder, why was our happiness level so much greater in years ago and decades ago than it is now? Because we are pulled in so many directions that we don't even take the time to connect with people in front of us. There is actually a term that when you are on a device, but you're standing in front of somebody who's having an actual, real, live, in-person conversation, and you pick up your phone and on the DL try to type or respond to a text, that term is called phubbing. And we are normalizing doing that. And it is absolutely so insulting to do that to the person that you're standing in front of. Many of us are addicted to our phones. I think that's a Captain Obvious statement. And this is a truth. How many of us have used phones while we're driving? 26%, and this is true. I look at the car accidents and the automobile accidents that we get alerts from the fire company. 26% of car accidents are involving cell phone use while driving and distracted driving. That 26% of car accidents could actually be avoided. Emails coming at us all the time, text all the time, social media, weekly screen time, the bottom end of the day, TV, all of your social media. Look at this, 10 to 13 hours a day. Imagine if you could get that time back. At the end of the day, I think it says on social media on average, we spend 5 years of our lives on social media. That's 5 years at the end of your life that you can't get back. Think about somebody that you've lost recently. What would you do to get another day with them? Think about 5 years of scrolling nonsense. I mean, you have to just take a moment to think about these things. So digital signs of device addiction. It is not in the DSM. I guarantee you DSM is not quick to put new diagnoses in there. I have no doubt in the next few years that we will see this in the DSM. You can see, have I been pulled over for texting and driving? Am I using my phone while I'm in the car? Doesn't my battery last through the day? Am I immediately plugging into any charging device, regardless of where my battery is, to make sure, God forbid, I don't run out of oxygen at my cell phone? I'm guilty. That's why I'm presenting this program. Do I have problems being focused when people are in front of me if I know that I have text alerts that I want to get to? This was a situation, that's only a bruise, but I was driving to Drexel Law to present in 2017, and a distracted driver came, I had a green light. They went 65 miles an hour in a 35 zone directly into me and totaled the car I was in. That is the car. I only had bruises because, thank God for Subaru is a great car, very safe. And I was totally shook up for a long time. I debated contacting the person who was driving. I was kind enough to redact their information and ask what was so important on the phone that this happened. Like, you could have killed me. If it was somebody else and not a safe car, you might have killed them. And lo and behold, when I had my pardon pending, I was in New Jersey driving back from the dog beach, had my 2 dogs with me, and I was scrolling on my phone while I was driving. Exact same thing. And I was pulled over. And at the end of the day, I didn't even have my physical driver's license with me. And they were kind enough to give me a citation for driving without my actual license instead of distracted driving. But I still had to report all of this to the pardon board and let them know I was pulled over for distracted driving. When the police officer pulled me over, he said, I said, what are you pulling me over for? He said, because I was following you with my lights on for 37 seconds and you didn't even see me. So I obviously, the wake-up call was not enough for me when it happened. Symptoms of digital device dependence. Have you ever felt like your phone's ringing, but it's not? Things like that. Eye strain, blurred vision, wrist hurt, your finger hurts from texting. What I can tell you, the signs of withdrawal, and I will wrap up by 5 after the hour. The signs of withdrawal from digital device dependence are identical to substance use disorder and withdrawal. Restlessness, anger, irritability, difficulty concentrating, sleep problems, craving access to, but if it were drugs, it would be to drugs or substances, and increased heart rate. These are the exact same. This is why I know we're going to see this in the DSM. This is a slide I told you. We only try to control things that we struggle with. Nobody's, on this program about like controlling your consumption of apples. So it's just something to be mindful of. I'm going to take the next few minutes. I want to talk about just some strategies, boundaries. How can we actually protect ourselves from ourselves? Use the do not disturb. When your screen time thing pops up on Sunday, don't flick it off the screen. Take a minute just to look at it. Check your email X number of times and set the expectation for others. Use your away message, but honor your own words. You can't have an away message that says, I'm out of the office for 10 days, and then respond immediately on your phone to every email that comes in. Set expectations by clearly, outlining what your intentions are. Turn off your notifications. Allow yourself the grace that if you want to check Facebook or whatever, Instagram or whatever it is, that give yourself that option of doing so, including emails. You deserve peace. Managing your apps. This was a TED Talk, and it said, basically, the apps that make us happy, the difference is they all have an end point. We only spend 9 minutes a day on those. The apps that make us unhappy, web browsing, news, entertainment, gaming, social network, dating, 27 minutes a day. The bottom line to this program is be mindful where you spend your time, because time is our most valuable resource, a non-renewable resource. It's our greatest currency, and we cannot bank it. Compare yourself to yourself. Don't compare yourself to other people. Looking at social media and ordering things because they look like so good on somebody else, just honor yourself. Take an hour each day. 4% of your life is 1 hour. You deserve that. Whether it's to go and exercise, whether it's to connect with people you need to connect with. Take an hour a day and get off the devices for 1 hour a day. There are a whole bunch of strategies in here about, get up, stretch, take breaks. Do not eat in front of your screens. We mandate that, and I hate to use the term mandate, but in our office, I do not let our team eat lunch and shovel your food in your face in front of a screen. I don't know about anybody else. Obviously, I've had food issues and eating disorders. I wait all day to eat. I do not want to use a shovel and eat and have no clue what I ate. Give yourself 5-10 minutes away from a screen to enjoy what you're actually doing. Be mindful. 3 out of 7 people on our team have tread desks, and we work from them. Making sure that you get sleep is so important. On our team, come January, I tell everybody put 4 mental health days, very random, on the calendar. When they come, you cannot change them. That's what we do in our office. Random days. Because you know what? We always take time off when we need it. It's a scheduled vacation. How often do you have a day off that you don't have the full agenda for that day? Very rarely. Gratitude. There's so much research on gratitude, keeping a gratitude journal. Couple things you're grateful for over the course of 10 weeks increases your happiness level 25%. That's a Duke Law study. Here's the Harvard article I talked about. Going outside without your phone for 20 minutes decreases your stress level. Spend quality time with family. Harvard study, still ongoing. You can Google it to get the full details. At the end of the day, what was the most important thing studying people throughout their lives? Can the social connection and the quality of those connections, not one person on their deathbed, and this is still ongoing, thousands of people have ever reported they wish they worked more. Helping others. And I want to just jump to this screen. So often as a dog person, I've often said, we all say, like, and even family, one more day, I wish I had one more day. And the truth is, you do have one more day, but that is today. Time waits for nobody. I started carving days out to spend with Amazing and Grace. I captured them in pictures, and it didn't make it any easier when Grace passed away, but I knew that I had to be as present in every day that I have with her, because I knew one day I would not have her. And so you do have one more day, but that day is today. So I will close out again, showing this screen. My email is in the PowerPoint. You can easily access anything, any contact information for me. Do not struggle in silence. If you send in a question, I will definitely address it after the program. Thank you so much all for attending today. And remember, asking for help is a sign of strength. Do not struggle in silence. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me.
Thank you so much, Laurie, for that wonderful presentation, sharing your story and highlighting the importance of mental health care for legal professionals in their daily lives, especially with technology. As Laurie mentioned, there are resources in every state, so feel free to reach out if you need those. Those are available for everybody. So if you do have questions for Laurie, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen. We'll answer a few now. It looks like some are already coming in. Our first one is, what are some practical self-care routines lawyers can implement to combat screen fatigue? I know you mentioned quite a few.
Right.
If there's any additional.
I would certainly say making sure that you take time to get a screen break, whether it's a lunch break, go outside. There's research that if you even get up and change locations and walk to the bathroom and walk back and reset, that you're much more efficient. So literally getting off the screen is the goal for doing that. And you need to actually be mindful about that. How has the pandemic influenced screen dependency, especially among legal professionals? That's actually an easy question to answer. And that's how this whole program started. Initially, before the pandemic, we were expected to work our hours. We put, everyone knew what your hours were. Pandemic hits, and you are all of us, regardless of what profession you're in, we're expected to be 24/7 on call. 100% didn't matter what time an email was sent. Because you're home and you have extra time, you didn't have to get dressed today, you're expected to respond. Then the pandemic carries through the phases. We're now back in the office or hybrid or whatever you are. That has only intensified. People expect responses immediately, if not sooner. It has made things 10 times worse. Initially, when the pandemic hit, many of us thought, oh my God, I didn't realize how much time I was wasting. I'm going to work smarter. And at the end of the day, we're now in overdrive, compensating and working much more than we ever have, because we cannot get off the devices because everybody knows that we have them. So it's only exacerbated the problem. How can legal professionals identify when their screen or substance use is affecting their mental well-being? When you ask the question, am I drinking too much or am I spending too much time on screens? In my own experience, you've answered your own question. Because I often have people call LCL to say, I'm a little concerned about my drinking. I don't know. They're not calling to say they're concerned about their Pepsi intake. So only you can determine that. And only you can determine what is important to you at the end of the day. At the end of your life, what do you want to be known for? And if the amount of time that you're spending, remember that 5 years, you don't get that time back. If you're spending more time than you want on devices or using substances and missing out on spending time connecting with people, that is something you need to assess and address because you're worth it. You're worth it. We only get one life. This is not a dress rehearsal. What are the most effective strategies you've seen lawyers implement for reducing screen time while still maintaining productivity in a legal practice? I think, and our own team has used this, when you have a task, close out of email, put your phone in a different area, not just face down on the desk. You can't see my phone. It's face down on the desk. If your phone is face down and you are trying to limit what you see, you actually spend more time looking at your phone and turning it over than had you just left it on with notifications coming. So the bottom line is, in order to hyper focus, assume that everyone has ADHD, close out all distractions, tell everybody in your team, I need 1 hour downtime to get this done, and protect your time and your space. You get so much more done. Our team, we make email announcements. I'm going off of email for an hour because that binging, that goes on all day. It'll go on all day if you have your email. What are some of the most significant mental health challenges lawyers face due to prolonged screen time? I would say anxiety and stress because of the lack of ability to connect with people. Think about this. I just heard this on the news this morning. The younger generation kids, their eyesight is worse now than it's ever been, and it's expected in 2050 to be 10 times worse than it is now. Why? Devices. If that's doing that to their eyesight, when we were all kids for the most part, maybe not Nina because she looks pretty young, but when we were all kids, we were outside playing, we were connecting, we weren't on devices. It really is an inhibition, like it does not allow you to connect with other people. And it gives you a false sense that on social media, you're connecting with people when in fact you actually are not. So that is not the connection that Harvard study is talking about. That is definitely not that connection. So that's what I would say. What are the warning signs a lawyer might need to hard reset to improve their mental health and professional performance? I said this yesterday in that program in Lancaster County. I said in a room of people, I said, how many of you have shut your device down completely and not because it froze? Not one person in that full room raised their hand. How many of you have decided, you know what, I'm going to leave my phone at home and I'm going outside for a walk like we did old school, you know? And I think just the stress and anxiety and burnout is a big one. When you feel like things are coming at you in a million different directions and people are literally pulling on you all the time, and when you're canceling plans on the weekend, you know, because you literally just cannot get done what you need to get done, that's impacting. Again, if you could take a canvas and predict how you would like to spend your time, look at what your prediction versus your reality is. So if you are getting that feeling of, I can't get it all done, I feel burnout, I want to stay home, I don't want to be around people, that's a warning sign. The weekends are supposed to be for time for enjoying your life. Okay, what do I think of Focus, Me, or app blockers? I think the bottom line is there are people that gamble that put themselves on a do not gamble list, almost like Vivitrol for people as an insurance plan against themselves. At the end of the day, I can't say this enough. Time waits for nobody. We get 86,400 seconds a day. You can't bank them. You can't share them. That is what you get if you're lucky enough to open your eyes. If putting apps, you know, there are all kinds of systems for alcohol to test that on phones too. If putting an app blocker is going to help protect your time so you can spend it wisely, I am all for it. I'm all for it. So if any other questions pop up or you think of something or you need help, or you just want someone to talk to, call us, email me.
Thank you so much, Laurie, for that additional insight. And thank you all for sending in your questions. We really appreciate it. We want to thank you all for joining us for another Justia webinar. As I mentioned at the top of the presentation, I also wanted to remind you all who are lawyers in attendance today about a hands-off way to get great leads for your practice without increasing your screen time, or Justia Lawyer Directory. If you've not already claimed your profile, you can do so for free by going to lawyers.justia.com and completing your profile. It has easy setup and easy upkeep with millions of visits each month, and it can help you get leads without sacrificing your mental health. Have a wonderful day, and thank you all so much for joining us today. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next clip.